The young linebackers of the Dallas Cowboys stepped up in a big way in Week 6. All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, LockedOnNFL, and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I am your host, Markquese Mosier. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosier. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Just got a chance to break down the defensive tape, so I'm excited to talk about that. There's lots of interesting nuggets there, lots of positivity to talk about, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and let's start with the linebackers because I was really concerned going into this game without Leighton Vander Esch. The linebackers were just going to get exposed, that Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert were going to pick on the linebackers all game long. And not only did that not happen, Leighton, they were one of the best units of your whole team on Monday. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's what you're seeing is two young linebackers that are kind of rising and getting better as the weeks. We've seen this with Damone Clark, obviously. You've seen him kind of. I think he started out really strong and had a couple of kind of mediocre games, but I think it's really starting to slow down for him and just seeing the field really well and running and running like without false steps and with a level of confidence that he's trusting what he's seeing. And what you're seeing from Markquese Bell is a guy that clearly has. And I talked about it in my notes actually. Is if you're going to play linebacker at the NFL level while weighing less than 220 pounds, you're going to need to be three things: fast, smart, and a finisher as a tackler. And I think that you saw that in spades with Markquese Bell on Monday. Just the ability to get to where he needed to go, to break it down, to not get fooled by his eyes, because that's what you're really worried about with young linebackers, is especially with someone like Kellen Moore. Is Kellen Moore going to exploit their eyes, right? Is he going to use misdirection and make them take a false step? And that means that they get put out of the play. And maybe that was happening a little bit, but there was so much speed between these two guys that even if they took a false step, they were still getting where they needed to go. Austin Ekeler wasn't beating anybody to the corner. There was no sweeps or anything going outside that was going to outrun Clark and Bell and whether it was pulling the trigger and coming downhill and making tackles in the backfield in a way that we just haven't seen them do, specifically Clark do recently. That's really he started to step up in, or Bell making tackles out in space against the starting running back, to save a touchdown. They were, I think you said it. They were a concern going into the game, like maybe the biggest defensive concern going into the game. But I think, grading wise, whether you trust PFF or whether you trust your eyes, I think it's hard to argue that they were two of the best players on the defense on Monday.
I'm not super surprised by Damone Clark playing well because he's done this. We see the development to this, right? With him. He's an SEC linebacker who has a lot of snaps, who showed this at times last year. I am surprised with Markquese Bell because Markquese Bell was on the 53-man roster last year, but was playing a safety and there was a lot of games he just wasn't active. To make the switch to linebacker just kind of late in August, and then to put up that game, I mean, I don't want to say it's the best linebacker game I've seen from the Cowboys in the last several years, but it was shocking the amount of big plays that he created. There was a sack that he had. There was, the sideline tackle to Austin Ekeler. He blitzed a couple times in coverage. He was phenomenal. I mean,
he was great in coverage. Yeah,
shocking how good he was.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you said it too. It's like it's not even just what we've seen before with a lot of these guys, especially the kind of smaller, faster guys, is they put themselves in the position a lot because of their speed. They can get to where they need to go to, even if they make a mistake with their eyes. Like we said, these smaller, quicker linebackers can usually get where they need to go in order to kind of correct it. What we don't usually see is the high level of consistent tackling and the ability to singularly take down guys on their own. Like that's I think where usually when you see these kind of run and hit linebackers, it's in a defense where, I mean, this, not that this defense isn't this, but it's in a defense where everybody's rallying to tackle the ball carrier, and it's about the will linebacker getting that initial hit and slowing him down and waiting for the rest of the crew to come in to finish it off, right? Again, I point to that Eckler pass into this flat right near the pylon on the 1 yard line. He pulled the trigger, came down quickly, engulfed a guy who is probably about the same size as he is, really, and then was able on his own to physically, manhandle him to the ground. There definitely was help that came eventually, but he did that by himself, and that's so crucial. I mean, think about all the times that you have linebackers out in space by themselves, and just one more thing I wanted to point out along those lines. Clark was doing that too. There was a couple of different plays where they tried to stretch Clark vertically with like a stop route with a tight end where they're trying to push the top end of his vertical zone, and you see them swing it out to the flat to the running backs, and Clark is so fast that Eckler was out there by himself, just alone in the flat. And Clark got there so fast that he limited it to a 6 yard gain. And it wasn't even just that it was sprinting speed. He was moving it with controlled speed to the point that Eckler couldn't juke him, and he just basically closed off his ankle to the sideline. It's just really impressive to see that level of athleticism combined with competent play. And I think, the Cowboys got very good results because of it.
So on Tuesday after the game, we were talking about whether we were encouraged or discouraged coming out of the win. And you and I both said we weren't really encouraged. I will say I was encouraged about the linebackers. It does make me feel like they can survive not only this next 3 or 4 game stretch without Leighton Vander Esch, and if it happens to be more than that, but that they're going to be okay. Like, they're going to be okay at the linebacker position because Damone Clark seems like he's made at least a little bit of a leap in year 2. And Markquese Bell is just a revelation. Like, he really reminds me of like a young Deion Jones in Dan Quinn's defense.
And a big part of it too that we should mention is the defensive tackle play has been incredible the last few weeks. I mean, Mozzie is playing Mozzie played his best game last Monday. Jonathan Hankins played fantastic. Osa is a star, and he should be in the Pro Bowl this year. I mean, that's the level that this guy is playing at right now. I mean, so I think that those two, the interior of this defense, is as good as it's ever been in years past, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, they're not killing you anymore. It used to be, can you cover up them enough? Can you have enough edge rushers and corners to cover them up? Now they're actually helping you win games. Like you saw the last 2 games, teams haven't run against them. I mean, I know we talked about the 49ers a lot, but the 49ers really did not run the ball particularly well against the Cowboys, and the Chargers aren't as good of a running team, but they didn't have any success either.
No. Again, the Chargers aren't as good as a running team, but they also haven't had Austin Eckler the previous 2 or 3 games. So, they got their star running back, and they still weren't able to do anything. So, I think it's safe to say that the Cowboys have a decent run defense right now. I mean, I think our eyes have shown us that. So, I don't know if it's something that I'm going to want to hang my hat on necessarily, but I think I think you're right in saying that if there is something to be positive about or looking forward to, this, we feel like it's something that can improve throughout the season. You have a lot of young talent in this kind of triangle of the defense and between your defensive tackle and your middle linebackers that I think can improve and can get better and is already, at a pretty decent level.
Let's talk more about that defensive line because Dan Quinn had them doing a ton of different, stunts and twists on Monday. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. We absolutely love Bird Dogs because they make you look so good. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they just fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of that stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs have fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like a khaki, but stretches so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dog uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Bird Dogs are functional for any occasion. I've told you guys, I like to use mine on the golf course because it helps you with your twisting and you don't sweat through them, which is fantastic. I will also say, listen, I'm not too proud to admit this, but like when we go out for dinner, my wife picks out my outfit sometimes. She seems like she's been gravitating to the Bird Dog shorts. Absolutely fantastic. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or enter promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That is birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Host Anitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchups, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and so much more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Landon, let's talk about Dan Quinn and some of the different things that he was doing on the defensive line in this game. What did you notice from DQ?
Well, the first thing I wanted to point out is that they kind of were using Micah, all over the place. He definitely took some linebacker snaps as well. They had him in a 3-point stance over the center for one of the snaps, which did not work out well. But they were definitely trying a bunch of stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about the twists and stunts that they've been doing, and they've gotten a lot of success in this, and I've got a lot of folks on. In fact, that big kind of game sealing or pre-game ceiling sack that Micah got, the sack, that Micah got, came off of a nice little twist where he was lined up as a 3 technique and Golson was the defensive end, and Micah spiked the B gap, and Golson came around and basically took out the inside shoulder of the guard, which drew him away from the double team and allowed Parsons to kind of slip off and get in there and get the sack. I will say that it does seem like, watching the game, that the Chargers, generally speaking, didn't have a ton of success against the defense. They definitely got some big plays, at some key moments, and then obviously, the penalties. But I think if you go back and watch, it seems like the time when the Cowboys had the most problems or gave up the most big plays is when they were allowing Herbert too much time in the pocket to let these plays to kind of develop down the field. And most of the time when that was happening, it was because of a twist or a stunt that had gone poorly. And whether that's the timing wasn't right, there's a collision between your two players just because of the way that the reality of how the play goes when it actually happens. But it just felt like there were times when the stunts didn't happen, guys got caught up, or you suddenly got, what can happen is that when you twist guys around, and if you're on podcast, I'm sorry, I'm using my fingers, but if you twist guys around, you can get into a situation where you accidentally put 2 defenders with 3 blockers. And suddenly you've created a bad numbers mismatch for your.
Well, there was one. They ran a stunt with, I'm trying to remember who it was. I know it was Mozzie and Micah Parsons, and they ended up getting in the wrong gap, and they knocked each other over. And Herbert was able to get outside the pocket, and he found Josh Palmer for like a 15-yard gain. That happened a lot in that game where they were just two guys in the same gap.
Or 2 or 3, exactly, where there suddenly the looper comes around, the spike guy didn't get anywhere, and now suddenly there's 3 blockers kind of standing there while there's 2 defenders basically stacked on each other. Yep. Neither one of them are going to get anything, and Herbert's just standing there. And again, maybe that is less dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous against any starting NFL quarterback. I mean, listen, they can do 7-on-7 for days, but especially against someone like Herbert, who literally could throw the ball anywhere on the field from wherever he is. like it just gives them the opportunity to get long passes down the field. And we lucked out because Herbert straight up missed a couple of them, especially on those double moves. So the Cowboys have got to figure that out because, look, they have a high level of success getting to the quarterback, and part of that is due to the stunts and twists. But there's also times when, those things kind of leave them out to dry, and it's a kind of live by the sword, die by the sword thing.
Well,
but
you saw that in the San Fran game. And Kyle Shanahan knows, like, the Cowboys are going to be aggressive up front. They're going to run twists and stunts, which is going to give us huge running lanes, right? Like you saw, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
That's where DQ's aggressiveness can sometimes get him in trouble. And I'll be honest, there's some of these times, like on 3rd and 11, where it's like, I don't think you need to stunt and twist. I'd rather just see these guys try to beat blockers one-on-one because I got confidence that DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are going to do so. I don't think you have to get overly cute here.
Yeah, and it's all kind of part of the chess game, right? Is that like the twists and stunts are the reaction to the blocking schemes put in place by the pass protectors to stop the one-on-one matchup. So it's like, Micah's got one-on-one on tackle. Let's run jet. Let's to the other side, or let's run protection to his side, slide protection to his side. And so the twists and the stunts are supposed to kind of counteract that movement to make them think twice about it. But there's definitely a point when you can kind of get lost in it, or it just the reality of how the play is executed in the moment. Just the way things happen. It can get you caught up, and it can get you to a spot where a gap is left open and the quarterback can sneak through or get outside and create plays, or just stay in the pocket because no one's going to get to him in time. And again, with someone like Justin Herbert and guys like Keenan Allen, that's really, really dangerous.
Yeah. What else did you notice from the Cowboys defense in this one, scheme-wise? Because I just thought it was interesting how DQ tried to go up against Kellen Moore and some of the different stuff that he did. So what else did you see on tape?
Yeah, I mean, I got to say that it felt like Kellen specifically kind of came out early and attacked horizontally. It was like a lot, like especially early in the game, he felt like you saw a lot of traditional screens to the running back, some smoke screen stuff. There was that touchdown to Keenan Allen was kind of a quick pre-snap motion that created space, by getting into the flat like that. So it definitely felt like they were kind of like really trying to test things horizontally early. And then later, as the game went on, they felt like they were, that they had some success kind of down the field with the stuff that we had just talked about. And they kind of tried that a little bit more. But they were not able to run the football. I mean, like they weren't really able to get much movement. And I think that, the Cowboys made some adjustments as well. It felt like early in the game, they were running kind of more traditional looks, and they had a one technique, and they had one thing that I wanted to point out, they had a center that was the backup center because Corey Linsley is obviously dealing with an unfortunate heart issue. So they have their backup centers Will Clapp, and he's in there, and they started out kind of putting one techniques like they normally would, like Hankins, Mozzie, Oso had a couple snaps in there, and they were having some success there, but it wasn't quite like what they expected for I think for a backup center. Once they started moving guys out of the A gaps, and then having stand-up linebackers like Micah, they actually had Armstrong kind of doing that role a little bit, and then moving guys across his face, moving guys around him. That's when he really started to struggle a little bit more. And despite the fact that the Cowboys only got one sack, that doesn't mean that the Cowboys pass rush wasn't having a major effect on Herbert.
I think
Herbert got hit a ton.
Yeah, I think I saw the stat during the broadcast that he was pressured on like 46% of his dropbacks.
Yeah, which I think was the highest rate. Was the highest rate of any single team in this year so far. So it's which one sack that just shows you. I mean, again, Herbert missed some throws, wasn't perfect, but Herbert's ability to avoid sacks in the sense that you're not bringing him down before he throws the football is Roethlisberger-like.
Well, I was going to say Herbert is used to getting pressured a lot because his offensive lines of the last 3 years have been atrocious.
Terrible. Yeah.
He doesn't get rattled. Like he generally doesn't get rattled. And the fact that the Cowboys were able to rattle him to where he was missing layup throws in the fourth quarter. Twice.
That double move to Keenan Allen, he missed twice, which was...
Yeah, which that tells you how the pressure impacted him in this game. I want to talk about the secondary because it was certainly an up and down game from that unit. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including the spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. And with the Cowboys on bye this week, why not just sit back, make a couple bets on FanDuel, and enjoy Sunday? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. We also want to let you know about Jase. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared. The Jase case can help you out. Jase Case is a personalized emergency medicine kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can customize your case. You can add additional life-saving medicines based on your unique needs. It's important to make sure that you're not caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jase handles everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Go to jasemedical.com and enter promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That is promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com, and make sure that you don't get caught unprepared. All right, Lena, let's talk about the secondary. I want to start with Jourdan Lewis, who did not have a good game. The touchdown that he gave up wasn't all his fault. It's tough to play that, because you're fighting through a lot of trash. At the same time, I kind of thought the effort was pretty lackadaisical there.
Well, it didn't seem like he was anticipating it, which you'd hope for, right? Like, because obviously they're in a bunch formation like that. They're trying to get collisions. I mean, they practice all the time, how to sort through bunches and how to get through that. Obviously it's a tough spot to be in. The angles are even shorter because you're in the end zone. You can't allow even an inch, so, but yeah, it did feel like he wasn't anticipating as much as I'd like. I think what we're seeing is that Jourdan Lewis is a limited player to a large degree, and has been
at this stage of his career, at least. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think they have done a good job of the Cowboys in general are doing a good job of kind of helping their corners, just because they're getting so much pressure. But again, like when they can't get home, or they get into a situation where you're allowing, not the touchdown, but other situations, right, where you're allowing basically unlimited time to run routes. It's really tough, especially for someone like Jourdan Lewis, who is not the kind of athlete that some of these other,
or at least not the athlete that he was when he was 22, 23,
or even last year.
Or even last year,
hurt foot.
I want to talk about Daron Bland, because this is like a very typical Daron Bland game to me in a lot of ways. Early on in this game, missed 2 tackles right away that both went for big gains. There was a touchdown that was called back that he missed the tackle on. And then he makes the play in the end zone on 4th down to knock the ball away to give the Cowboys give the Cowboys the ball back. He should have had a pick 6. I still don't know what happened. I went back and watched that play, and the ball just goes through his hands.
He was surprised how it was just in his hands,
Yeah. Which would have been hilarious if he had done the interception. But it seemed like after the first half, he really settled down. I think this is just what we expect now from Bland. Like, he's going to struggle sometimes to make some plays, but it feels like 2 or 3 times a game, he's going to make a big play for you.
All right, so I'm just going to pull the curtain back a little bit. When I came into a DM group that Markquese and John Owning and I are in, and I got pretty upset. I was like, you guys need to explain to me why Jourdan Lewis rated higher than Bland. See, I just did it again.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that, if I haven't told everybody this, I missed the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And that's where Bland had all of his terrible play. So going back and watching the all 22, I'm like, oh, okay. I see that. Yeah, I missed that tackle.
Because it was the first drive. He really gave up like 2 touchdowns on the first drive.
And let's be clear, he got beat twice on that double move by Keenan Allen that Herbert missed both times, and either of them would have been touchdowns. So don't love that part. But again, Bland doesn't ever stay like Bland doesn't ever have like a whole bad game. It's like he has, like a couple of different bad snaps that he finds a way to come back, and he has a short memory, and he's just so consistently good.
It's very similar to another cornerback that the Cowboys have, Trayvon Diggs, right? Like Diggs can have bad plays and bad halves, but usually he'll make a play or two be like, okay, we forgive him for that.
That's right. Yeah. So he makes up for it. And Bland has been fantastic so far. I think that, look, that had some tough reps. Keenan Allen is an absolute stud, Keenan Allen, if he had been able to stay healthy for a good portion of his career, we're talking about a Hall of Fame wide receiver. I mean, he's
just that consistent and that good.
Yeah. So I'm not going to blame him for that. It's the Palmer stuff, man. Like that kid apparently is a lot better player than I expected as well. So I also thought that Gilly had a pretty kind of up and down game, but I mean, I think for the most part, obviously finishing the game is a pretty big win for us. And I think overall he had a positive game, but there's definitely, he got that stupid pass interference call, which was absolutely ridiculous near the end zone. I'm not knocking him for that one at all. I'm not either. And then just like, a couple different spots where, they kind of ran deep over routes and, people talking about like him losing a step, but it's like almost no cornerback can cover a wide receiver on a deep over route if there's no pass rush and he's allowed all the time in the world. It's just, you have better leverage. Yeah. So, I thought that, and then just a couple things on the safeties real quick before we go. I think Wilson had an okay game overall, but I'm really concerned about his ability to cover tight ends. Like I just don't think that he's
not big enough to do that.
He's just not something he does well. He's just not great in man coverage in general. I don't feel like.
Leave that to curious why they use him so frequently to do that.
Well, I think it's just a function of having him out there at the position that he plays and then calling the defense, not necessarily like thinking about, Donovan Wilson is the cover the tight end. It's like you need, at a certain point, you need your safeties to be able to cover a tight end like a play or two.
Which is why, a couple of things. I think they really missed Wanye Thomas in this game. Yeah. Because I think Wanye is going to be able to he's going to be that guy eventually that can cover the tight ends. At the same time, I kind of think Izzy Mukamu should just be getting more snaps and doing that role because I think he's got the perfect size and athleticism to match up against bigger tight ends.
He was active this week.
He was
stressed out.
Only because Wanye didn't play though.
I'm just a little confused by that whole thing. And I guess it's just because of pure safety numbers, but I mean,
I'll find a way.
Put him out there, let him play corner for God's sakes. Like, get
him on the field.
It doesn't make sense to me.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. On tomorrow's show, we're going to answer your Twitter questions, so make sure that you send them into us at Marcus_Mosher, at McCoolBCB. We are free and available on all platforms. Again, we post shows every single day on YouTube. Again, follow Landon, follow me, follow the show Locked On Cowboys, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.